Hello, my Archer and Olive friends. May Flom here. Today we are making an ode to the Archer and Olive notepad. I have made no secret that they are my superpower. They are so helpful for me for a number of reasons. Today, what we are really going to focus on is we are really going to focus in on how I use them to plot out larger projects. So I have a video about this enormous series of journals that I am making about places I dream of traveling to. And as I was making that video and as I was finalizing how I was going to take on that project, I realized that a big part of the how was my process for when I have a really big project, so that I don't just get overwhelmed and quit, so that everything doesn't just fall apart, or I don't start and waste a lot of money or ruin a really great notebook because I thought I wanted one thing when in fact something else was quite true. So this video, I'm going to walk you through my process when I've got a bigger project or a new idea, including what you see back here, not the hummingbird by my daughter, but these guys back here, because yes, with the notepads, the pages rip right out, which means not only is it easier to keep this whatever's on top on hand, but I can now take this. There's a bunch of these in my travel notebooks. I've got them taped up with washi tape to my wall. There are a bunch of different ways that we can use those. There's a bunch of different places and reasons, from both more disposable notes that we're not going to need to save forever to things that we save for a very long time. So let's dive right in.
There are a lot of times that opening up that new notebook and diving right in is the absolute right call. For me personally, it's when it's a project like I'm working on one of my quote books or an art journal, or just one of my journals in general, where I just kind of chit chat and work through thoughts, and it's more of a brainstorm kind of a book. There's lots and lots of instances where that is perfect. However, when I want something cohesive, start to finish, when I want to take something on very specific, that is also specific in nature with regards to what goes on the pages. So for example, an art journal, every page can be totally different. If I'm working on one of my travel notebook series, my little guidebooks for myself, right? That's incredibly specific, and I'm going to want to follow a formula. But what formula? That's where this video comes in. So for big projects, the biggest thing I have to say is utilize those Archer and Olive notepads. Not to sound like a commercial, but those things are the best. And there I am flipping through my new one. They are the best because they come in the bigger size and the smaller size. They are portable. You can rip the sheets out. They are wonderful on so many levels for me. And what they have really freed me up to do is get writing on that high quality Archer and Olive paper, but then tear it out. I might tear it out and save it. I might tear it out and put it up on my wall for reminders. I might tear it out and throw it away. Depends on what it is. I do all sorts of stuff on this. What I'm really finding specific to this topic of planning out big projects is, number one, let yourself brain dump. Let yourself get in there and work out what is it that you think you want. Then step two, which you're watching right here, is get more specific. More specific about what are the problems, what are the setbacks, what are the pros and cons of what you're doing, or what are the pitfalls to watch out for, what do you really want from it, and what do you really not want. Once you have done this, your next step is going to be deciding on the notebook, deciding on the size and which one you're going to use, or if lucky, you get to go buy a new one. In the case of the travel guides that I talked about just now, that was one of them. And I was flipping through because I was still kind of debating if this was correct. And I just want to notate that you could pull pages from this notepad out and put it into a notebook. You could take all sorts of bits and pieces, maybe some sticky notes, so that you can actually visualize. But for me, usually the notepad is visualization enough because I've got those two sizes and I can kind of take a look and see what I'm kind of thinking about doing and what is it that I want and figure it out. Just as important, you're going to figure out what you do not want, because knowing what you don't want will eliminate so many choices, which is going to make your life easier because you'll already instantly know, well, I'm not going to use a square, or I'm not going to use a B5, or I'm not going to use whatever type, size, style you're not going to use, same as what else you might really, really do want. When you take a look at all of your notes now, what you do want, what you don't want, what you're trying to get out of this, you're going to see, number one, is this a viable project? Number two, what is the right notebook for the project and the format and the styling and the frequency and all of that kind of thing? And finally, you're going to have some well thought out answers that are going to vary person to person, project to project, but by doing so, you're going to have things in a way that's going to work for you. Now, you just saw me hanging up one of my pages on my studio because the goals project, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking about how am I going to get myself to be accountable and do this, and what book or what style, or how am I doing this? How is this going to happen? Now, what you see me doing here is doing very big time details on big projects I have going. So remember, we can keep using that notepad to keep the big project going, to keep things flowing, to work out things, almost a rough draft format, which is something that I find so helpful and I really dearly love.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have anything that you do when you are working on bigger projects, or if you have any questions for myself, if you want to share something, if you want to talk through something you're working on, talking it through with somebody else is often a really great tool. So I welcome you to contact me, email, social media, whatever's good for you. I'd love to chat with you. And be sure to check out the blog post linked in this YouTube video for even more information. I'll see you next time.